Hi, first grade. It's Miss Karen, and it is time for faith studies for this week. We are on week 5. And so I have a question for you. And can you tell me, do you know somebody who is tall? No, I mean really tall. Like so tall they can touch the ceiling. Do you know somebody like that? Well, I bet you do know somebody who's tall, but maybe not that tall. We're going to do a story that is going to talk about a giant. I mean, a giant. And it might be a story that you're familiar with. You might have heard this story a lot. You may know it forwards and backwards and left and right and back and forth. But I still want you to listen because I'm going to teach you some new things today about this story that maybe you've never heard before. All right? So let's get started. I'm going to hold up pictures for you to see as we go through the story. And so just be a little patient with me, okay? Here we go. Let's see. All right, here we go. The Palestine army was headed to Israel. And they weren't looking to be friends. They had one purpose. It was to divide the land of Israel into parts. Divided in two. If the nation of Israel was split into multiple parts, it would become weaker, and that would be mission accomplished because they would make them weaker and therefore they could overtake them and have power over that land. Well, King Saul, he was in charge of the Israelite army, and he marched his army towards the oncoming Palestine army. He wanted to cut them off before they got any closer. So King Saul and his army of Israel, they met the Philistine army in the valley of Elah. The armies of Israel, that would be them here, they were up on the northern ridge, and the Palestine army, they were on the southern ridge. And then, after they see each other, nobody moves. Neither army wants to retreat, and neither army wants to charge into battle. At least, not yet. So I have a great map that I want to show you. You might recognize some things from it. From our Bible sheets that we did, we would have a map, and you might notice this, the Dead Sea. And what comes out above the Dead Sea? The Jordan River. If you remember, this big mass of water was the Mediterranean Sea. Well, Israel runs in between these two bodies of water. Okay, so this is what the Israelites are trying to break up so that they can take over. So this valley we're talking about is in here. That's where these two armies are meeting up. Does some of that look familiar? It should. So the Palestine army sends down their mightiest warrior into the valley floor, and he calls out to the Israelites. And this is not just any ordinary warrior. He is over 7 feet tall. He's wearing a bronze armor, and it weighs 125 pounds. He's got a spear that's another 15 pounds, and then he has somebody who carries his shield for him. The giant's name? Well, you might already know who it is. Goliath. Well, as many of you probably know, none of the Israelites were real interested in going down into the valley to fight this giant warrior. With his glistening bronze armor and his sword and his spear, ready to fight. So for days, Goliath taunts them, calling someone who would listen to him and come down and fight him to the death. If they win, the Philistines will surrender. If Goliath wins, then all of Israel will have to become the servants of the Palestine army. Slaves for the rest of their lives. Well, as you might think or imagine, no one in the Israelite army were really excited about fighting Goliath. It kind of seemed like a death wish. I mean, who wants to go fight this huge warrior to the death and risk his whole nation's freedom in the process? There weren't any takers. And for the lunch takeout lunch arrived. I'm just kidding. There was no takeout lunch back then. But someone showed up with some lunch, and his name was David. David was sent by his father to go check on his older brothers who were in the Israelite army. So when he got there, he was hearing and seeing Goliath taunting and yelling at the Israelite army for someone to come and fight him. Well, David immediately volunteers to go fight. So David goes before King Saul. And King Saul, understanding that David's odds of winning aren't very good, he tries to help him out by giving him some of his own battle armor. But David, he won't take it. He doesn't want to wear it. He's going to fight Goliath on his own terms, with his own tools that he uses when he protects the sheep because he's normally a shepherd. So he usually has those things to protect his sheep that he's guarding. He's like, I don't want all that armor. I'm just going to use what I have. I trust my skills. He also trusts someone else. All right, here we go. So David begins to walk down to the valley floor, picking up 5 stones along the way. Seeing David approaching, Goliath begins to laugh. The best Israel can send is some random short guy? This is going to be a piece of cake. Now, many of you know what happens next, but I want to share something with you that you probably never knew. Most of you know that David takes his sling with a stone inside and he kills Goliath when the stone lands on his forehead. But almost all of us think of David as using like a kid's toy to use. Well, the slingshot is what we call it. Doesn't sound very impressive, does it? Let me tell you a little bit more about his slingshot. Slingers, which is what David would be called, it's what they called in the ancient times, were really, really good at their weapon. Most of them could hit a target that was 200 yards away with a stone in their slingshot. That means he could sling this over 2 football fields long. That's a long way. Not only could he swing it that far, but he could even hit a bird that was flying in the air. Now that's pretty cool. But we still might think that, how do you get a rock to come out of there so fast? Well, the stones that he collected down in that valley, they're special. They're not your normal stone. These are kind of made with a special different types of materials that makes it twice as heavy as normal stones. And when you combine that with how far he can fling things and how fast that stone is going to come out, which is 78 miles per hour. That's super fast. That's like as fast as you would drive on the interstate. It becomes a very serious, deadly weapon. So we can see how that slingshot can become so powerful. Well, David's sling, it took out the Philistines' mightiest warrior. Make sure we got the picture in there. You see, God wasn't just putting David in a fight against Goliath to help end the war. God was showing us something about David and also something about King Saul. Do you remember what Saul wanted David to use to fight Goliath? He wanted him to use all that armor, use all that heavy stuff. And David was like, no, I am going to trust in God. I'm going to trust that he is going to get me through this because God knows what we don't. And God also has our best interest at heart. And he has our future in mind. So don't think that you have to be something in order for God to use you. We can be a little shepherd with a slingshot and a rock, and God can use us to defeat the biggest giants in the world.